Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and the remainder of the Stellar Miracle cards have finally been revealed. We have seen a good amount of them already with the Terrapagos, the Lapras EX, and the Galvantula EX, stuff like that, but we did finally get the remainder of them revealed. We got a brand new Ace Spec we're going to look at, a brand new Medicham EX, and a brand new Tool card that actually could be pretty good against Gardevoir EX, so definitely excited to look at some of these new cards that did get revealed, the remainder of the Stellar Miracle cards. This set will be coming out in September, for us in English, and then next week in Japan. There are some other cards I did want to look at in this video. A Sylveon EX and a Ceruledge EX got revealed. The text is a little blurry on the reveals, though, so the translations may not actually be 100% accurate, which is why I never did a video on these right away when they got revealed, but I was like, I guess we'll look at them anyways in today's video to have some more extra stuff to look at. But if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're getting super close to 15,000 subscribers. So if you've not yet subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to subscribe down below. If you go on to enjoy the video, leave a like. I'll leave a link to PokeBeach here in the description below if you want to go check out any of these cards for yourself and give them a read. So we're going to scroll down here and start looking at the brand new cards we got revealed. So we've seen Ladian already, but I don't think I've looked at the new Credilli yet. So this new Credilli here is a Stage 2. Keep in mind, Lileep does evolve from the Antique Root fossil, so it does evolve from a fossil, which is the big kind of quote-unquote downside, but Credilli does have that ability, Mucus Buffet. Once your turn, you may flip a coin of heads, choose Burn, Confused, or Poisoned. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now affected by that special condition, and then you have the attack Marshy Winds for a single Grass Energy. Does 100 damage times the amount of special conditions on your opponent's active Pokemon. So, Credilli's okay. I think the ability is like kind of decent if you want to try to get that extra bit of damage off with either Burn or Confusion. Or Poison. Depending on the scenario, Confusion can come up in some niche situations. Burn and Poison is technically extra damage you get to do, especially if you have Radiant Sneasler or Peerless Jungle in play. Technically, you can get a decent bit of value out of Credilli. The downside of Credilli, it's a Stage 2 that evolves from a fossil, and it's on a coin flip. Not a lot going in Credilli's way. Ironically, Credilli actually synergizes really nicely with that new Ace Spec card that can burn and I think it's Burn and Poison. The new laser Ace Spec thing that we're getting. I forget what the special conditions are, but the new laser Ace Spec that puts 2 special conditions on your opponent's active Pokemon. I think it's Burn and Confusion or something like that. This actually could be okay with it. I mean, that's a free 200 damage right then and there, and then you can potentially poison them for 300 damage. There you go. Boom. Credilli with that new Ace Spec broken Tier 1 BDIF. Now, the Credilli's okay. It's like fine. It's on a coin flip, and it's a bit awkward to get into play, but, you know, it is what it is. It's not the worst card we could have got. New Carnivine. Don't think there's anything too crazy about this card here. Just 130 for each damage counter, less than this Pokemon. Nothing too crazy. We did get to do Mo Rotom here. I don't think we've had any of these special Rotom cards in quite some time. I know we've had pretty good Rotom cards already, like Rotom V, but I don't think we've seen like the special versions of Rotom in quite some time. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, Mo Rotom does have that Harvesting Dash attack, which for 1 colorless energy does 30 damage. Before doing any damage, discard all tools and special energy on your opponent's active Pokemon. So this could be pretty annoying with against Lugia, right? You know, Lugia's got all those energy on them. You can discard all the energy on the Lugia. Could be kind of evil in that regards. Nothing too crazy otherwise. If Lugia ever gets extremely popular, this could be kind of annoying for Lugia to deal with. It is kind of decent against Legacy Energy. I'll say that. Like, if your opponent goes hands Legacy Energy against you, you could just go Mo Rotom, and then the Legacy Energy is now gone. And then the Iron Hands gets stranded in the active spot. So there are some cool things you can do with Mo Rotom against Lugia. It's more or less like a Lugia counter, obviously. We got new Eldegoss here, Zephyr Gift, 1 colorless energy. Put this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. If you do, search deck for up to 3 cards and put them in your hand. So it's a really interesting attack. The downside is you got to put this thing back in the deck, but getting 3 cards out of your deck is pretty good. It allows you to set up. You can maybe play like a mini control deck. You could play Eldegoss with wall cards like Mimikyu, Fluttermane, or Iron Thorns EX. So that could be a cool, interesting concept for a control deck. Yeah, hit and run, search your deck style deck could actually be kind of cool as like a mini control deck. Nothing too crazy, obviously, but could be a little fun meme for sure. We've already looked at the Hydrapple EX already. I think we've already looked at the new Salazzle too. There's a new Turtonator here. Don't think it does anything crazy. Ring of Fire, 50 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned. During your opponent's next turn, that Pokemon can't retreat. It's like okay, I guess. Nothing too crazy. A lot of the big reveals here at the end of the sets usually tend to be like as less crazy as others. Another, we got a Lumineon here. Return does 20 damage to all cards you have 6 in your hand. Broken, bro. They want Lumineon to dry cards. We've already looked at the Caracosta already. We've looked at the Crabominable. We've looked at the Dreadnought. We looked at Veluza. There's a new Electivire that got revealed here. This could actually be one of the worst cards I've ever seen. So it has the attack Lightning Strike for 2 Lightning Energy, does 220 damage. During your next turn, your Pokemon can't attack, including Pokemon that come into play. So not only can the Electivire not attack, I mean, that's one thing. You know, Gouging Fire. You can't use the attack until you move from the active spot. This is literally flat out, you just can't attack next turn. You just have no attack phase, which is pretty bad. I mean, not attacking the opponent is not very good. And you're only doing 220 damage, which, like, is okay numbers. But yeah, this is definitely a pretty bad card. I'm not really digging the Electivire. The fact that nothing can attack is a little absurd. This card would have been maybe a little bit better if they made it so, like, you can't do the attack again next turn. So you can't, like, Lightning Strike twice. But the fact that you just flat out can't attack is ridiculous. This is definitely a pretty bad card. Next up, new Lantern here. Perplexing Flash for 2 colorless energy. Your opponent's active is now confused. Put 8 damage counters instead of 3 on that Pokemon for the special condition. Now, that's an interesting confusion effect. So, I don't know if we've ever seen confusion do extra damage before. I can't recall that ever being a thing. That's kind of interesting. So, if your opponent tries to attack under confusion, they can potentially take 8 damage counters, which is actually pretty solid. I mean, that's a lot of damage to hit yourself for confusion. The only problem is, you know, your opponent can play around this by switching, retreating, or of course, they can just quite simply, you know, not attack. But if they're not attacking, they're not doing anything. So I guess there's a world where this Lantern could be kind of good. Maybe you could play this with Spidops EX. You put a bunch of Spidops in play. And you do that attack, and then you hit them with like a Judge or Iona or an Unfair Stamp, and that could get a little awkward for them. So maybe there is some rogue potential with Lantern. That could be a fun Bad Deck Friday deck. We've seen the Joltik, Galvantula already, pretty good cards. We've seen the new Vigavolt, new Togamaderu here. Shocking chance for 1 Lightning Energy. Does 30 damage if your opponent has exactly 1 prize remaining. Your opponent's active is now paralyzed. So, I mean, it's okay. We've seen these kind of effects before on, like, cards, you know, Slowbro, for example. Togamaderu is, like, okay, it's nothing too crazy. Paralysis is a good effect. Now, if you were to combine that with an Iono, you could put your opponent down to 1 card in their hand, plus paralyze them. You could maybe make somewhat of a comeback happen with Togamaderu, but I wouldn't really call this card, like, insane or anything. It's, like, okay. It's very niche, too. It's also only requiring lightning energy, so you can only use it with a specific type of energy, right? Which is another downside of playing it. News Aurora we've already looked at. We did get a new Slowking here, which we've already looked at. We did get a new Drifloon and Drifblim, which I don't think we've looked at. So we got this new Drifloon here, you know. Not the best Drifloon, you know, it's a better one in the format. But we do have a new Drifblim with the attack Everybody Explode Now, or Everyone Explode Now, I should say. So this actually is a reprinted attack we've seen before on older cards in the past. Example, there's an old Fortress card, I think from the set Unleashed, and that had the same attack name. But yeah, for 1 Psychic Energy, you do 50 damage times the amount of Drifloon and Drifblim you have in play, but the attack also does 30 damage to each of your Drifblim in play. So that's not bad. I mean, you can do, what, 200 damage for 1 energy? That's not too shabby. They do have to take damage, but in fairness, you know, Drifloon does have an attack. The one from Scarlet and Violet base set does have an attack that if it takes damage, it does more damage. So what you could theoretically do is you could do double Drifblim attack, put 60 damage on a Drifloon, and then that Drifloon is doing a lot more damage, which is pretty good. You're doing, I don't even know, you're doing a lot of damage. I'm like too lazy to count. But yeah, Drifloon does 30 damage for each damage counter on it, and Drifblim can technically put it to 60 HP remaining, and then you can do a lot of damage with Drifloon. So that actually looks like it could be a pretty fun archetype to try out. You can maybe play Xatu in the deck, or like EXP share or something like that to like conserve your energy, to power up your Drifloons a little bit easier, because you can basically set your Drifloons up to then be able to KO big Pokemon, because they can do big damage. You can even put like a Bravery Charm on it and then do like 3 Drifblim attacks, and that could be kind of spicy. So not a bad card. Definitely an interesting concept for sure. We got a new Comfey here. Unfortunately, not as good as the old classic Flower Select Comfey, of course. Let's see. We've looked at Furfrou EX. We've looked at the Iron Boulder. New Marowak here. It's got the attack Bone Revenge. If any of your bench Cubone have any damage on them, you get to do 180 damage in total. So not bad for a DT. You can play this with Gapejaw Bog or something. You can play it with Damage Pump or whatever manipulation tactic you want to play. And it works with a double turbo, which is kind of cute. New Rhydon here, going into the new Rhyperior. So Rhyperior's always had fairly interesting card. So it does have an ability. It's got Wide Wall. As long as Pokemon's in the active spot, whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to your Pokemon in play. So with Rhyperior in the active, your opponent cannot boss Pokemon up on the bench, and that's actually pretty powerful. I mean, that's a really good effect. Obviously, you have to be in the active spot, so the Rhyperior itself has to be good. It's got the attack Drill Run for fighting double colorless, just 180 damage, and you discard energy on your opponent's active Pokemon. I mean, not a terrible card, because, like, in fairness, if it's in the active spot, all your Pokemon on the bench can't be bossed. Your opponent has to use, like, Bundle or Prime Catcher or Counter Catcher or something to get around the Rhyperior. So, in fairness, this actually could be an interesting card. I don't know how you would play it, though. It does need fighting energy. It does require 2 energy to attack with a double turbo, which is nice. So, could be an okay card. It has a cool ability where it prevents being bossed, which is nice. And there might be other supporters I'm not thinking of right now either. Now, we got a brand new Medicham EX here. Medicham's also had some fairly interesting cards recently, so it does have the attack Shiitsu. Put damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until its remaining HP is 50. So hopefully I didn't butcher the name, by the way. But yeah, that is very similar to Serena EX. Now, Serena EX has never been, like, overly competitive, but it has been a fun deck to play from time to time. And this card does basically the exact same thing, except 50 HP instead of 30 HP, which obviously is a bit worse because you can use Serena with very, specific cards that work with it, like Panic Mask or Brute Bonnet, Sneasler. This doesn't have that luxury, but you could combine this with, like, some attacks that maybe could finish off a Pokemon 50 HP or less remaining. It does work with a double turbo. The fact that it works with 1 energy is kind of the main selling point. And then you have the other attack, Yoga Kick, does 190 damage, and it's not affected by weakness or resistance. So it's like an okay card. I mean, the first attack is, like, not bad. If anyone can think of any cool concepts for that first attack, let me know down in the comments below. Because it is very similar to Serena, but they have more health than what you would use Serena. There's a new Menchow here. I might have already looked at it, but if your opponent has 5 or fewer cards in their hand, the attack does 60 more damage. 1 for 90, it's not bad, but they have to have a smaller hand. You could play Iono and Judge to, like, make this attack work, I guess, but it's nothing too crazy. This new Diancie is kind of interesting. Another anti-Lugia card, which is kind of cool. So it's got the attack Special Refraction, does 40 damage times the amount of special energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon. This is not a basic, keep in mind. Now, this card, it's not bad against Lugia. I mean, Lugia is a deck that tends to put a ton of energy into play, specifically the special energy, right? So they put a ton of special energy in play, and all of a sudden Diancie can do, like, 1,000,000 damage. It's actually pretty good against Lugia. Like, a Lugia V-Star would have, what, 4 energy on it a lot of the time? That's already 160 damage, which isn't bad. You can obviously use this to KO Iron Hands EX against Lugia, which is kind of cute. So yeah, another, like, anti-Lugia card. It's not as good as, like, other, ways to do Lugia, but it's not a bad card at all against Lugia. You can use it to trade against the Cinchinos, which is good. It does do only 40 times, and it's a fighting Pokemon, so Lugia V-Star itself does resist it. But if you're playing against a Lugia player who gets caught off guard and puts too much energy in play, you could just come out of nowhere with a big Diancie knockout. And that would offset the prize trade a lot, because that's a 1 prizer that works for 1 colorless energy. And that could actually, like I said, offset the prize trade quite a bit if your opponent does not expect Diancie in your deck. We got a new Phalanx here. It's got Link Formation. You can search check for 2 basic Pokemon and put them on your bench. And then your other attack for 2 colorless energy does 30 damage. And if this Pokemon did use Link Formation during your last turn, it does 90 more damage. So you can do 120 for 2 colorless energy. You have to do that first attack first. So it's got a cool, like, effect, but it has to also survive the turn. If it gets knocked out, the attack won't work. So it's nothing too crazy. New Swalot here. Pretty funny artwork. It's got Gulp Down. Does 10 damage. Plus, if this Pokemon has more energy attached to it than your opponent's active Pokemon, it does 160 more damage. So 170 damage if it has more energy on it than your opponent's active. I mean, you could play this with Dark Passion stuff. Some energy acceleration does exist. I think there's a new Janine's Secret Technique card to put energy on it. And if you can pull that off, I mean, 170 for 1 energy isn't too shabby whatsoever. New Pangoro here. You got Pull. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon in the active spot. Pretty straightforward attack with really no, like, other effect, which is kind of interesting. But then you have Tantrum. Does 160 and is confused, so pretty vanilla card. We do have a new Grimmsnarl. It's been a while since we've had a Grimmsnarl card here. It's got the attack Proactive Clutch. For 2 colorless energy, you switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. Your opponent chooses a new active Pokemon. The attack does 160 damage to the new active Pokemon. That's interesting. If your opponent's bench is, like, full of low HP Pokemon, something's got to be brought up to be knocked out. That could be kind of spicy. And then your other attack, Knuckle Sandwich, great attack name, does 160 damage, and you have to discard 2 energy off your Grimmsnarl. I would argue the first attack is more stronger than, like, the second attack, to be honest with you, because it only works, so you can do the double turbo, which is kind of sick. We've seen the new Kling Kling already. I think we've already seen the new... Oh, we haven't seen the new Melmetal yet, I lied. See, a new Melmetal here does have the attack, Remodel Axe for metal and 2 Color Energy. Does a whopping 250 damage. Before dealing damage, discard a tool card from this Pokemon. So you constantly have to be putting a tool card on your Melmetal, but there are ways to do that. You have, obviously, Arven in the format to find tool cards, and 250 damage is pretty good damage. I mean, that's enough to knock out most big basics. You can play Choice Belt, and you can knock out V-Star Pokemon, which is pretty good. Not a bad card. I mean, you can play with Metang. You just have to constantly put tools on it. So you'd probably have to play a lot of Arven in your deck. You'd have to play a lot of tool cards. That's the only downside, but it's definitely not a bad Melmetal. Could be good maybe with Melmetal EX or something. Like, there's some synergy there. We've seen the Archuralodon. The card above it is a Duraludon, which I think we've already seen before, too. Seen the new Orthworm, new Raging Bolt, obviously. We've seen new Perugly here. No, the text isn't there for some reason. I don't think the new Perugly is insane, though. I would love to get a good Perugly card, by the way. I don't think this Perugly does anything too crazy. We've seen the Rotom, Bouffalant. I think we've seen the Talonflame. Yes, we have. Double, nothing too crazy. Obviously, Trapagos we've seen. We get into the items now. So, yeah, we got a couple of new items to look at here. We have some new tools. So we got the Payapa Berry. So whenever the Pokemon and this card's attached to is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Psychic Pokemon, that Pokemon takes 60 less damage from that attack after applying weakness and resistance, and then you discard this card. So I think you put the Payapa Berry on, and then a Psychic Pokemon hits that Pokemon, and this card, it gets discarded. So it's not like you put it on and you get to discard at the end of the turn. This stays on until it gets hit by a Psychic Pokemon, it looks like. And that's pretty good if you're playing against a deck like Gardevoir, which, quite literally, their entire deck is Psychic Pokemon. They have a Greninja, but that thing can't attack. So, I mean, this is a pretty good card against Gardevoir. Taking 60 less damage from most of Gardevoir's attackers can be pretty good. I mean, for example, Gardevoir EX does 190 damage. All of a sudden, it's only doing 130 damage. Now, the downside with Payapa Berry, it's counterable. Gardevoir can, play Lost Vacuum or whatever to counter it. And the other downside with this card is, Monkey Dory still in their deck. Monkey Dory is what makes Gardevoir so broken right now, is it has the ability to heal their Pokemon, but also put 30 damage on the board for free, and Monkey Dory can get around Payapa Berry in a way. If your opponent needs to hit a certain number, they could still technically Monkey Dory you, which is kind of annoying. A Monkey Dory is a pretty stupid card, so this card definitely could be good against Gardevoir. You'd also have to play it in, like, a high quantity. Like, you'd have to play, like, 3 in your deck to get, like, a decent bit of value out of it. Just playing 1 in your deck, I don't think gives you enough value with your Payapa Berry, but maybe if you were to play, like, a heavy counter them, it's worth it. The other downside is Gardevoir has to be popular enough to, warrant playing this card. Now, if you're playing a deck that has an abysmal Gardevoir matchup, you can consider playing this in your deck, and all of a sudden, maybe that matchup isn't so bad after all. That's the only thing I could see with this Payapa Berry, but it's not too bad against Gardevoir. Because, like, Flutter Mane does 90 damage. It's going to be doing 30 damage to you. That's pretty good. Even, like, Drifloon, you can sometimes avoid getting KO'd by a Drifloon, which is kind of cool. Screamtail also. Then we got the other berry here, the Oka Berry. Now, does the exact same thing, except for Fire Pokemon. Now, Fire Pokemon aren't very popular right now. In fact, one of the big Pokemon in the format that abuses Fire Energy is not even a Fire-type Pokemon. Charizard EX is a Dark-type, so funny enough, this card wouldn't even be that good against Charizard. I mean, it's like, okay. Again, there's not really any good Fire Pokemon that are worth teching for. Like, Gouging Fire is, like, not a bad deck, but it's not popular enough to be like, I gotta put Oka Berry in my deck this instant. So, until we get, like, a better Fire deck, this card might have to be in the binder for a while. I think we have a new Ace Spec here. So we got the new Deluxe Bomb. So we've seen all these other cards. We have the new Deluxe Bomb here, new Ace Spec card. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, put 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, and then discard the card. So we're getting quite a few tool cards here that do something when they get hit, and they have to discard them after they get hit. So Deluxe Bomb is a very interesting Ace Spec. It's very similar to an old tool card called Bursting Balloon, which did something similar, except that Pokemon would take 6 damage counters for attacking you. But you'd have to discard the Bursting Balloon at the end of your turn. Deluxe Bomb, like I said, does something similar, but it looks like you keep it on until that Pokemon gets attacked. Now, like I said, tool cards as Ace Specs are a little sketchy because cards like Jamming Tower and Lost Vacuum do exist. but there are decks out there that don't have ways to remove tool cards. Deluxe Bomb could be a pretty annoying tool to deal with. Like, if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have a way to remove tools, you could get a lot of value out of the Deluxe Bomb. It is very strong in a lot of scenarios. I mean, 12 damage counters is insane, especially if you need to fix the math on a knockout or something massive attacks you, like a Charizard EX, for example, hits you. I mean, that 12 damage makes it even easier to KO that Pokemon in return. So there are some niche uses. This card might only be good until Vacuum rotates. I mean, Jamming Tower still exists too. That's like another big issue. It's like an okay card. Is it better than like Hero's Cape and Survival Brace for Tool Ace Specs? I'd say it's probably between those two. Like, I think Hero's Cape's still the best, but this card's probably between Survival Brace. Yeah, I think this is maybe better than Survival Brace. You get a lot more value out of it in some niche situations. New supporter card here. We got a Crispin. I think we've already looked at this. If I remember correctly, I think we've seen Lacy 2, Kofu. I think we've seen Briar also. I think we've seen all these cards. Yeah, we've seen all these cards. Obviously, big Great Tree and stuff. But those are all the new cards that got revealed in the Stellar Miracle set. The rest of the cards, let me know what you think of the new Ace Spec and the new Tool Berry cards. These are interesting cards. Maybe we'll see more Berry cards come out in the future. That'd be kind of cool if we did. Then finally, we're going to read up on the Sylveon EX and Ceruledge EX. Like I said, we're probably going to get official reveals for these cards very soon in full English. Now, one interesting thing to note, actually, as these cards were getting revealed, there were other Ace Spec cards within the picture. They're too blurry to make out what they do, but whenever these cards fully get revealed, I'll be sure to cover the Ace Specs. But yeah, take this with a grain of salt. These cards may or may not, do what they say because the image is a little blurry. But yeah, Terra Sylveon here. It's a Psychic Pokemon, and then it's got 2 attacks. You got Magical Charm for a Psychic and 2 Colorless Energy, does 160 damage. During your opponent's next turn, attacks from the defending Pokemon do 100 less damage. So, could be good against Pokemon like Dragapult and Charizard, where they may not have a great way to get around the effect as easily. And then, of course, you have Angelite, which for a Water, Lightning, and a Psychic Energy, choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and shuffle them and all cards attached to them into your opponent's deck. And if you used Angelite last turn, this attack fails. So you can't do this attack over and over again. You have to wait a turn to do it again. But that is pretty annoying to deal with. I mean, it does require a weird energy cost like Water, Lightning, and Psychic is a little scuffed. But that is a decent effect. Like I said, being able to put stuff back in the deck is strong. I guess you could build this up with like Baxcalibur and Xatu. You go Bax, Xatu, attach Lightning, boom, there you go. And it is a strong effect. I mean, against like evolving decks specifically, this is pretty annoying. Like if you're playing against, for example, Charizard, you can like counter catch your Bibarel up and then Angelite a Charizard and a Pidgeot back into their deck, and they could run out of candies or something. So there are some niche uses. Could be good against, Shampoo, ironically. Put 2 Baxcaliburs in the deck. Put the Bibarels in the deck, combine it with an Iono. So there are some interesting things you can do with Sylveon EX. It's not a bad card, more of a niche card, but it does have an annoying attack if you can power it up correctly enough. And then finally, we got the Ceruledge EX, which is interesting. Hopefully this one is good because we haven't really had a good Ceruledge yet. But yeah, it's got the attack Abyssal Flames for 1 Fire Energy, does 30 damage, plus 20 more damage for each basic energy in your discard pile. Not a bad attack. For 1 energy, that can do quite a bit of damage. Thankfully, you're already doing base damage, and your multiplier isn't bad either. You do have to play a lot of energy, but that's fine. You can easily get away with this with Earthen Vessel, Pokestop, Radiant Greninja, all kinds of ways to find energy and discard them for the attack. And for 1 energy, it's pretty easy to chain this card over and over again. And then finally, your other stellar attack for a fire, psychic, and a metal energy does 280 damage. You have to discard all energy from this Pokemon. Not bad. I mean, if you can actually power this up, which if you're playing this card, I feel like you're just using the first attack anyways, but if you can find a way to build it up, 280 damage, nice damage, knock out V-Star Pokemon. Hey, you got Maxim Bell, bro, KO Charizard EX in 1 hit, boom, busted card. Yeah, I think the first attack is just 10 times better, but I actually kind of like it. 270 HP, it's fairly tanky for a Stage 1 EX Pokemon. It works with, the Armor Rouge if you ever want to combine it with that. So there are some cool things you can do with the Ceruledge and the Sylveon. I think Ceruledge is better than Sylveon, but Sylveon could be cool if somebody could figure out a way to make it annoying and work. But there you go, folks. Those are all the brand new cards that got revealed over the past couple of days and tonight, I guess. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of the new cards down below in the comments below. Do you think Sylveon and Ceruledge are playable? And let me know what you think of the new cards that got revealed in Stellar Miracle. Like I said, the new Papa Berry, Oka Berry, and the new Ace Spec, and all that stuff. Let me know down in the comments below. And I'll catch you all in another video very soon here on the second channel. I'll leave a link to PokeBeach if you want to check out the cards for yourself. And if you're new to the second channel, once again, make sure to sub down below. We're on the road to 15K subs. And I'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.